Good morning, everyone. Once again, this is Adam Sotok with NC Child. We're going to give it just about 2 more minutes and we'll get started. Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Adam Sotok with NC Child, the Public Engagement Director. Thank you so much for joining us on our weekly legislative update call for child advocates. Let me first of all say happy Juneteenth to all of you out there. Happy Friday. Hope that you all have a safe and nice Friday and nice weekend ahead. We're really excited about our agenda for today and some discussion that we are going to be having. Prior to getting to our featured speaker, however, I wanted to start out with just a few quick announcements. First of all, as many of you may have seen, hopefully have seen over the past 24 hours or so, we have relaunched the registration for our 2020 Kids Building Racial Equity in Child Advocacy Conference. It was originally scheduled back earlier in the year and unfortunately had to be canceled because of coronavirus. However, we have rescheduled it for August 4th and 5th in a virtual format. The registration is free, and we hope that all of you can try to tune in and join us during those times on August 4th and 5th to talk about an issue that needs more attention and more discussion and more action than ever, and that is building racial equity in our advocacy community and helping all children succeed. I know Fawn is putting the link for the registration down in the chat box. Encourage you throughout the hour here, if you have any questions or comments, to utilize that chat box. But we really hope you can join us. We've got some great speakers and sessions lined up for that and are looking forward to getting that relaunched. One other thing I wanted to just highlight for folks to be on the lookout for is NC Child, along with many other organizations, have been doing some federal advocacy on a variety of subjects. And one thing that we are really pushing hard on for the upcoming stimulus package, when or how that comes together federally, is increasing the amount of Medicaid dollars that we can get here in North Carolina by increasing the FMAP for Medicaid. And that's the percentage that the federal government pays for Medicaid services. We've already received one bump in the CARES Act that was passed earlier this year, but we're really pushing hard for an additional bump in that. And it gets a little bit in the weeds and a little wonky in talking about that, but the bottom line is that in total, if we get another bump, we're talking about a couple more $1 billion in Medicaid money that can come to North Carolina in a time where obviously we're in a budget crunch and we're looking for resources. So keep an eye out for that information and that action alert that will be directed towards our U.S. senators, and we hope that you'll take action. Another thing that I just want to give a heads up on, that during our 2020 Kids event, we will be having a workshop on the issue of voter engagement and nonpartisan voter engagement. Beyond that, we have a staff person, Juvenile Skiba, who is leading our voter engagement work in 2020, where we're providing many grants to nonprofits across the state and really trying to ramp up how we can engage people and encourage them to vote. We don't tell them who to vote for, but we make sure that they participate. So that's something I want to let you all know about and let you know that you're going to be hearing more about voter engagement from NC Child as we move into the second half of the year here. I think we would all agree that it's an important year that everyone has their voices heard. Those are the announcements that I had, and now I'm just going to overview the agenda really quickly. First, we're going to have Jeremy Collins, who is going to speak to us. Jeremy is a wonderful advocate, and I'll tell you a little bit more about him in a minute. And then we're going to have a state legislative update from Fawn Pattison on our staff. And then we're going to do some breakout groups where we're going to follow up on the discussion and some of the items that Jeremy talks about and get some feedback from you all advocates there on the Zoom call. So first of all, I want to introduce Jeremy Collins. He is the director of the Office of Public Engagement with the Office for Governor Roy Cooper. And Jeremy's going to talk to us about a couple of executive orders on racial justice that have just been instituted by the governor here recently. I'll say that I've known Jeremy and been a fan of Jeremy's work for quite a while, over many years. I think I probably first met Jeremy way back when he was doing some advocacy for people of faith against the death penalty. And I know that he's done all kinds of wonderful stuff. I believe a Martin County native, if I'm not mistaken, and knows North Carolina in and out. And I know that we're all going to benefit from what Jeremy has to talk to us about today. So take it away.
Hey, Adam, thank you very much. So just a point of personal privilege, thank you guys for having me. And Adam and I have known each other for a really long time. And what he didn't say is that he actually hired me back in 2003 or 4 back at Democracy NC. I did some organizing. I think Jen Fry and I came on together one summer, and we started working in Eastern North Carolina. And so I'm always grateful for the time that we got to work together at Democracy NC. But yes, I am from Martin County, from Dardens, North Carolina. And have always wanted to do really good work, and I've been fortunate to work with good people like the folks at NC Child. So thank y'all for what y'all do. And I guess formalities aside, on behalf of Governor Cooper, 75th Governor of the state of North Carolina, thank y'all for your partnership. This isn't the first time we've been able to work together on some good stuff, and I'm hoping we can continue to do that. But on behalf of him and the First Lady, just want to bring you greetings and also echo the Happy Juneteenth and all the stuff that we're both celebrating and really grieving today. And I think that the stuff that the governor's been doing over the past 2 weeks in particular are an attempt to set us on a course for a better future. And I'm excited to be a part of that. I guess I'll jump right into it and say, Executive Orders 143 and 145 are born out of listening to lived experiences and communities of color. And the first executive order was really right on the heels of the murder of George Floyd. And essentially, we'd been working on, in our staff capacity, an executive order really for months. Literally for at least 2 months, to address disparities in communities of color that were really intensified, heightened, bright lined, if you will, by the COVID-19 pandemic. And first born out of a place where we wanted to make sure that we were focusing in on how to deliver services to people who were hurting the most. And so what you'll find in Executive Order 143, it first is the establishment of the Andre Harris Social, Economic, Environmental, Health task force, Health Disparities Task Force, chaired by Michelle Sanders, who's our Secretary of the Department of Administration. That provision is clearly to bring together anti-racist, racial justice, racial equity advocates, intergenerational, interracial, interdisciplinary folks that are going to look through a lens long term to kind of untangle kind of disparities as they go across the board in all those areas. Starting, of course, with like health disparities and testing and medical services. That is a task force that, you know, on its face doesn't have like the immediate authority to do a thing, but a commitment from the governor to take those recommendations over the next 2 years and implement them as best possible, but whether by executive order or through advocacy in the legislature, or even advocacy or in partnership with our health centers and health clinics and health departments across the state. The second provision of that executive order is about a direct provision of service, and that is we were able to work with our Office of State Budget Management in partnership with federally qualified health centers and health clinics and the local health departments to give guidance that clarified federal COVID-19 dollars to provide health service for not only COVID-19 testing, but for the treatment of underlying conditions to uninsured North Carolinians. That is huge. Got to thank Ben Money over at DHHS, who really leaned in with us and to get that language right, and also the executive director of the North Carolina Association of the Health Clinics. We worked with them to get the language right, such that if someone is uninsured and they believe themselves to have COVID-19, or if they are experiencing illness that is one of those underlying comorbidities, diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure, pulmonary illness, obesity even, you can go to one of those facilities, free health clinic, health center, health department, and you can get treated for that illness, and then the health clinics can be reimbursed from that using COVID-19 stimulus dollars. Again, really proud of that and the effort to go in that. The third biggest provision, I would say, is the establishment of a small business enterprise to essentially help small hubs, small historically underutilized businesses, those that are minority businesses with 100 employees or less, receive equitable recovery or COVID stimulus. And our North Carolina Hub office surveyed nearly 400 businesses across the state, small hubs, mostly minority businesses, mostly ethnic minorities, who said overwhelmingly, we applied to SBA Paycheck Protection Program. We never heard back anything from a bank. We applied even to Golden Leaf, and with the Rural Center, we were shut out of that process. We can't even, not only do we not get a fair shake in the contracting with the state, not only do we not get a fair shake in access to resource and capital for our businesses, because that's one of the main things that small businesses say. Well, the feedback of these small businesses here is you're undercapitalized. You know, you don't have the infrastructure to really handle certain loans or programs. And so we again heard that, worked with our hub office, worked with CDFIs, and work with the financial institutions to set up a small business enterprise that would essentially function as a grant to small hubs, ethnic minorities who have been shut out of the SBA and or Golden Leaf programs, to get, again, equitable, not more, not luxury, not excessive, just equitable COVID-19 recovery. There's no kind of longevity of business, being in business involved with that designation. I will say that at this point, the plan for that is to have a $20 million fund. Right at this point, we have $500,000 that's already in the fund really to expand Hub's capacity to do that work. And then we're working with our Office of State Budget Management through the next round of both federal allocation and then state budgeting to make sure that that $20 million is set aside for that. Now, I want to make sure that you know that $20 million ultimately is a drop in the bucket. I mean, and at our last federal allocation, we sent $125 million to Golden Leaf. And so this is not like we want extra. Again, this is about equity, and I want to really focus on that. The executive order, in addition to that stimulus, sets up the North Carolina Pandemic Recovery Office. That's going to, again, oversee the federal stimulus money that comes to North Carolina and make sure that it's equitably distributed. There's other provisions that give direction to my office about making sure people know about COVID and how to protect themselves, but also that you know how to access services. And then there's some provision for a Department of Environmental Quality to do more training, more education, more equity, and the infusion of that culture across the board as far as clean energy and environmental justice. And then some directives to our Department of Public Safety, particularly because they have such a large congregate living population. And we have received a bunch of feedback and are currently in litigation around our juvenile justice system and our adult corrections system, and how those populations need to be significantly lessened, diminished, such that the spread of COVID-19 is not as severe. Keeping it all the way real with you, like I'm on that side. That's where I am. Governor knows that, so I'm not saying anything new on this call. And I'm pushing Secretary Hooks every day to say, hey, we haven't done enough yet. We gotta reduce these numbers even more. So that's really Executive Order 143 in a nutshell. 145 is really a response to not just the George Floyd killing. The impetus is definitely what happened to George Floyd, and I think that the governor saw it, and I think a lot of well-intentioned white people saw what happened to George Floyd and said, I can't stomach this. Like, we got to do something different. We know it's not just George Floyd. It's not just Breonna Taylor. It's also Akil Dinkins in Wake County. It's also, our Hispanic Latino brothers and sisters in Durham County. It's Alamance County, Greensboro, Mecklenburg with Charlotte, Forsyth, Guilford. Like, this happens all across the state. It's happened for generations in communities of color. And so 145, this Racial Equity Criminal Justice Task Force, is designed to do a few things. One, to examine over-policing of minority populations, to set up this 25-member task force chaired by Associate Justice Anita Earls and Attorney General Josh Stein, and to prioritize reforms. And I want to be really clear about that. In my conversations with the governor, we've made it really clear that we don't need to study kind of what's happening with law enforcement, and we don't need any more evidence that certain communities are policed in different ways, more disproportionate ways. What we really need to do is bring people together to say, these are the things that we can implement now that would be helpful. And kind of as we look long term, these are the things that have to happen, that we have to champion in our legislatures and in our municipalities. This group will be meeting every other week between now and December 1st, twice a month, and we'll be making recommendations up to and through December 1st, 2020. And they won't all be statewide recommendations. There'll be recommendations that will go, to different departments. So, we'll be able to kind of, with the governor's recommendation, go to Alamance County and say, look, either at the county commissioner levels to your sheriffs, or to Burlington, to your police department. These are some things that need to happen right now to bring about equity in your police departments. I'm really excited about what that committee, what that task force can do. It's also a challenge. And the challenge is we in the advocacy world know that, politics, even when it wants to do a good thing, the germ can slip in and not want to do too much of a good thing. How many of us have been at the legislature and been like, wait a second, guys, like we could do something really awesome. And it's like, I can't let people feel like y'all want too much. So we got to like dumb it down a little bit. We got to like make some concessions. And so, my push every day is to not have too many law enforcement people on this task force and to make sure that it's community informed, directly affected people led, and that the decisions are data driven, outcomes oriented. Those are some of the guiding principles that we're pushing for this task force to have. And so we'll see how that goes. But that's where we are. And you can find both of them online. If you just Google search North Carolina Governor Executive Order, you can pull them up. They're 143, 145. And I'll finally just say, it ain't over. Like we got a few more things we got to do. Like we know that the evictions moratorium is set to expire today. We know there's some resource set aside, but some people are going to be hurting. And what you're seeing there is a push and pull between the real estate realtors and the tenants, but nobody's really talking about the big bad banks in this that are like really, they're the ones that are kind of holding the realtors hostage and the tenants hostage. And if there's a banker on the line, I said it. I'm happy to own that. But like we have to be intersectional now more than ever. We have to be thoughtful now more than ever. We have to make sure that whatever we do is not about form, but it's about substance. And so, gone is the day where we get to check a box and say we did this thing. Like we really do have to, no kidding, sit down, listen, and act in ways that benefit marginalized and directly affected people. So I'm gonna shut up, but I'm really thankful that you guys let me be here for a little while.
Jeremy, thank you. I mean, this is powerful work, and we really appreciate what you're doing and what the governor's doing to try to address some of these just crucial issues. And agree with you 100%. And I know we're going to try to do what we can as allies to help in that substance over form, moving forward, et cetera. Just thank you. And thanks for explaining these executive orders, because, I'd seen the executive orders came out. I kind of glanced at them, but I mean, you really dug in there and were able to tell us the details of what those mean. And there's just a lot of exciting stuff in there. And one question I wanted to ask, and I'm sure it will be addressed, but, obviously from the NC Child standpoint too, we have a lot of interest in a variety of issues, including juvenile justice and the school to prison pipeline. So do you see those conversations being integrated into the criminal justice task force?
Yes, sir. So we're going to have at least one child, one young person, one not adult person on the task force. There may be another, but there will also be child groups that do work with with children's advocacy organizations. So it's funny that you say that. There were three phrases that I wanted to make sure got into this task force. There were several, but three that I wanted to make sure were listed there that are not in the task force. They were anti-racist, school to prison pipeline, and mass incarceration. And so, the thought is that we can still get to those things without having them articulated in the document. But just understand that is even if it's just one voice, that is a conversation, that is a demand that we have every day. I've worked with NC Child. I was at SCSJ when we were talking about that partnership, and so I'm very familiar with what you do. I'm also I consider myself a partner, an ally in what you're doing. So your work is near and dear to me, and so it's definitely at the table when we have these conversations.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually got to go. I've got another Juneteenth program that I got to go to. Both for 11, but I do want to make sure that I answer any question that I see. And says, Jeremy, how can child help with the work? Well, that's the only question I see for me. So the way that you can help is, and that's a great question. I need you to send us in state email what you want to make sure we cover. We have to create a record that we were asked to do certain things, right? And so, you might think that's a nothing ask. That's a huge ask. What I'm asking you to do is to create a record that certain things are just important, non-negotiables, and we have to address it because if it's not there, then when folks literally, we got a public records request yesterday for the different drafts of our executive orders. Someone asked, like, that's really crazy. The civil rights lawyer in me says that makes perfect sense because I want to see like where you started and so when people 2 years from now or 6 months from now, when someone says, why did we do this and not do this? You wanted to be said that your organization went on the record asking for certain things to be considered. So that would be the best way that you can help us. And then, I come from the advocacy world. And so sometimes I can be really critical of even what we do and how far we could have gone as opposed to what we did. And so I would say, when the governor does good stuff, praise him for the good thing that he does, but then at the same time, remind him that he could go a lot farther. I think a lot of times in our communities, we are scorched earth or celebration. We're scorched earth or celebration. And I think that what we really have to do is be nimble and nuanced, much like, of that community is, and say, wow, Governor, this was really awesome. This was great. Like, kudos on moving the ball forward. Here's some really critical stuff that we left out that we got to do either the next time around or the next available opportunity, because here's all the folks who are not able to realize this good thing. So those are the two things I think you can do to be really helpful.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. We know you have to run, but we appreciate your time and we will be in touch soon, I'm sure.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you all. It's great to be here. I wish I could stay longer, but I'm with y'all. We're together. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Yes, sir.
All right. So next, I believe we could just move straight over to Fawn Pattison with NC Child, who's our special guest legislative update presenter this week when there's like a million things going on. So I'm just going to sit back and listen to this.
I don't know why you're laughing, Adam. So y'all, thank you. And I hope you can bear with me. I'm a poor substitute for Whitney Tucker or Ashley Perkinson. The legislature is in session right now. The Senate is meeting all morning and the House is going in at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So all the lobbyists are at the General Assembly and you get me instead. I'm just going to give you kind of a big picture. I will do my best to answer any questions and we will follow up by email with you if there are any questions that you have that I can't quite answer today. So what I want to tell you in the big picture, like I said, legislature's in session right now. That's also, by the way, why we don't have Matt Gross with us today. So I apologize that Matt's not here. The usual cast of characters is slammed. So the reason they are so slammed is that we are rapidly closing in on the end of the short session. Speaker Moore announced last night that session would wrap up by the end of next week. Of course, that can always change. However, you can see by the fact that they're meeting on a Friday afternoon, and if you are one of those lucky people who subscribes to committee announcements from the General Assembly, they're coming in fast and furious with lots of bills listed in every committee hearing. So when they get busy, you know they're getting ready to go home. So for now, what we're expecting is a mad push to pass as many of those mini budget bills as they can by the end of next week, because we are not expecting to see a state budget. Of course, that can change. Everything can always change, but the mini budget bills are flying fast and furious. And then after that, what we're expecting is that legislators will adjourn the short session and go home to celebrate the 4th of July and get started with their reelection campaigns. And there is a good chance that state legislators will return later this summer to do some more budget work, or specifically coronavirus relief work in July or even in August. We know that they're very eager to get some additional guidance from Congress that would let them plug some state budget holes with some of that federal CARES Act money that they're still sitting on. I think that's still over $1.8 billion in federal CARES Act coronavirus relief money that the state is still holding in that coronavirus reserve. Although a little bit more of it has been apportioned out in some of these bills this week. Of course, Congress is still working on this federal C4, we're calling it, package. That would be the fourth package of coronavirus relief. The US House did pass that HEROES Act last month, but the US Senate is still working on, like, what's their return volley going to be? And we're hearing that, that may happen sometime after the congressional recess that happens over the July 4th holiday. The timing is still not super clear, but if Congress does send another relief package to the states, which we very much hope they will, then the state legislature would need to return in some form to allocate that money. Again, timing is really up in the air, but we and lots of other, I know many of you are having regular conversations with Senator Burr and Senator Tillis to try to, make sure that that package is forthcoming and that it will benefit kids and families. So that's the big picture. Couple things I want to say about kid-related bills that are on the move right now. And I don't have details on what happened just this morning. I know Senate Rules was meeting this morning and Senate Finance, but sort of some bad bills that I'll talk about first and kind of get out of the way and move towards better news. There's a bill that some of you may remember from 2019 that it's Senate Bill 918 that would expedite the termination of parental rights when kids are taken from their parents in foster care due to substance use. This is a really nasty bill that has already passed the House and was up in Senate Rules today. And the expectation is that this bill will go through the Senate and have to go to some kind of conference committee between the House and Senate to get resolved. We know that advocates for people with substance use disorder, advocates for women's rights, advocates for kids in foster care are all really concerned about this bill because we really feel that it would overburden the foster care system by putting more kids into care, that it's going to really disproportionately target poor families and women of color, and that really what parents need is treatment for substance use, not to have their kids taken away. We need to be supporting families, and that this could really scare them away from getting the treatment that they need. So keep an eye on that. We're doing everything we can to try to make sure that that does not come through in the end. So that's bad, but some mixed news around Medicaid transformation. So that's Senate Bill 808. And I know Sarah Vadrine is on the line if people have more questions about the specifics with that bill. This bill was called Medicaid Transformation Necessities. They changed the name to I think they just changed the name to Medicaid funding because this transformation bill really is becoming the legislature's omnibus healthcare bill this session. It's getting loaded up with a lot of other priorities on top of Medicaid Medicaid transformation. So many of those things are positive things that we're happy to see. But as far as the transformation piece goes, we definitely still have some serious concerns about it. There have been some improvements, and I think probably the biggest improvement is that it took the start date out to July 2021. So that is an improvement, and I think that really helped with a lot of the healthcare provider concerns about the disruptions that transformation could cause. We are still really concerned because the initial rollout of transformation in 2019 was very disruptive for families. We're really worried about causing disruptions in children's healthcare continuity in the middle of a pandemic. So that's a challenge. There's also penalties for DHHS to pay to those MCOs if they don't meet that timeline. If you have questions, Sarah Vadrine has typed her email address into the chat box, and I really recommend getting up with her. So moving on to maybe better news, House Bill 708, that's about child protective services intake screenings and really trying to standardize those intake screenings across counties. That has moved forward. It does include some language we're concerned about that would allow legislators to request and view confidential social services information. I'm not sure why that is now in there, but that bill is moving, so that's something to keep an eye on. It's mostly positive though. And then I did mention some coronavirus relief stuff moving forward. House Bill 1229 passed the House and Senate and is on its way to the governor for his signature. That would appropriate $2 million from the Coronavirus Relief Fund to really improve some of the unemployment insurance system. You know, we've heard about all the challenges and backups in that system, and this is some money to really help them. And then I think the best news that I want to share is that, you know, we were just talking about justice reform, and it's really a huge national outcry for reform in police and criminal justice. And that has kind of shaken loose some bills in the raise the age space. And so these are some bills that have been languishing in the Senate since passing the House last year. That includes the First Step Act, House Bill 511, and the Senate Second Chance Act. They've passed the House and Senate, are on their way to the governor. Also, House Bill 593 is up in Senate Finance today, and that would make, I think, a lot of technical changes with regards to juvenile justice, court changes and fees. So if you want to know more about those bills, we can get you more information about that. I think that's everything I have to report. I feel like I talked really fast, but if you have questions, please go ahead and enter those into the chat box, and I'll probably email them to Whitney and have her get back to you, but we'll see if I can answer anything now.
I'll just say one other thing, Fawn, and it just caught my eye this morning on the calendar, and it's moving forward, is a juvenile justice related bill, House Bill 593, that passed the House last year and now is moving through the Senate. And apparently this morning in Senate Finance, according to Billy Lassiter at DJJ, got amended and the bill made better, you know, according to him. And this is about ensuring that children under 18 are detained in juvenile detention. Right. It makes some edits to potential structure for JCPCs and does evaluation of intensive services through JCPCs, and apparently has a couple of those other JJAC recommendations that came through that kind of raised the age, work, and committee. So, you know, we could maybe forward out a copy of that. That's about all I know whenever we see a dusted up version of that. I mean, since it's changed, it'll obviously have to be conferenced with the House or what have you.
Right. Great. If folks have any questions, please go ahead and enter those in the chat box. Okay, I see a comment from Michelle Rivest in the childcare space. Yes, thanks, Michelle. House Bill 1117 and House Bill 1130. These are both funding for the childcare sector, and they're both great bills. We would love to see them heard. I think they're both sitting in House Appropriations. If you have a minute to contact your legislators, those are both bills worth supporting in the House. So you can see those bill numbers in the chat box.
And I know that Michelle Rivest is obviously on the line because she's in the chat box. Michelle Rivest, do you want to unmute yourself and talk about the hearing really quick on Wednesday, just to give people a heads up on the early education hearing in the House on Wednesday?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Michelle Rivest with the Early Ed Coalition, and happy to report that we've made some progress in getting the childcare crisis issue in front of policymakers next week. The House Health Committee will be meeting at 10 o'clock, and we will be able to give them a special presentation, short, 15 minutes, about the childcare crisis. And we'll also have one of our childcare programs sharing their lived experience about what this crisis has been like for them. So hope you can join us and look for some opportunities to join in the advocacy and surround sound social media and things like that, just to keep the focus and spotlight on as they're winding down the session.
And next week, as Fawn said, is sure to be a very busy and crazy week if they're really moving towards adjournment, at least adjournment for a while.
I think that's all I've got. Adam, I don't see any more questions coming up in the chat box. Of course, folks, if you have questions after we're done, you can always email us. You're going to get an email follow-up to this meeting, and you will be able to just respond to that email and ask any further questions. I do see a question from Frank Crawford. Any movement on other recommendations made by the JJAC? Adam, do you have an update on that?
Well, apparently, and again, I'm getting this in like real time. I think what the amendment this morning to H90 593 was another JJAC recommendation bill, House Bill 702, was basically folded into 593. So, Frank, we'd have to, maybe if you do a search on the legislative website, House Bill 702 and House Bill 593, basically it sounds like are kind of combined, whatever those bills entail at this point, and seems like they're on the move. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the end. So if there aren't any further questions, what we are going to do now is attempt to go into breakout groups.
Oh, man.
Exciting. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask that when you go into your breakout group that you turn on your cameras if you are willing to, so that we can see one another as we chat in a smaller setting. And we'll start out, you'll have facilitators, but we'll just start out with real quickly with our name and organization and location in the state. And then we've got a prompting question or two. So let's give this a go.
Okay, so guys, bear with me. We haven't done this before, but what we're going to do, as Adam said, is everybody's getting assigned into breakout rooms. And the idea here is just, we've had all these CAN members together every week on these Friday calls, and we want you to get a chance to talk to each other. So that's what we're trying to do here, and we think smaller groups would be helpful. So there should be, if I do this right, there should be an NC Child person in each of your breakout rooms to kind of lead you through and help you have the conversation. But this is the agenda. We're going to ask you to just kind of go around and introduce yourself, name, organization, where you're at. And then we want to do a conversation quickly just about how we can support each other. Specifically, we want to ask about your work on racial equity. We know that many of your organizations are working on racial equity in your internal operations, in your external work, and trying to improve that work all the time. So really, what are you doing with that, and how can we support you? That is the topic for this conversation. And if you have time, we also want to hear more about these CAN meetings we've been having on Fridays. Future meetings. What would you like to do with them? Do you want to keep having them every Friday? The legislative session's winding up, and we've been doing these every Friday because this is our Friday legislative update, but we know we've been also really using them to support each other through COVID. So do you want to keep doing it, and what future meeting topics do you want to see? So those are all things that we'd love to talk about in these meetings. So I'm going to try to get these breakout rooms set up. It's going to take me a second, and I have to stop talking. So Phil Donahue, if you want to have some conversation while I'm doing that, it might take me a minute. So thanks.
All right.
Hey, Adam, just quickly while Fawn is doing that, the infomercial I'll do in this little space is that NC Child just posted this morning a job announcement on our website for our Director of Organizational Strategy. And so if folks are interested, and if you can also please get it out to your networks, we would very much appreciate it. It's a really critical job and position with our team, sort of supervising and supporting our advocacy team and really helping decision-making and strategy at the agency. So send us good people, and we would appreciate that.
Tell them they get to tell me what to do.
They do. You get to tell Adam what to do.
need some Jeopardy music here or
I
something.
know, I know. Again, I don't want to keep talking in case people are like doing these things. People break off into your Zoom group all of a sudden. Like, here's
Nope.
mine. I'm going to join my group. Bye, everybody.
In here.
Hey, folks.
Hey, Fawn.
I'm really happy to see people in a breakout room because I wasn't sure if this was going to work or not. I hope everybody else is in one. I have no idea. Oh my gosh. Lamine, can I turn it over to you to facilitate this conversation?
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for participating and for your patience. As someone who has done the breakout room process, I know it can be a little bit unnerving trying to hope that technology will cooperate with you. So thank you. As Fawn mentioned, when she was giving the instructions, if you're comfortable, please feel free to turn your cameras on. We're really trying to kind of create some of that energy that we have at live meetings and the opportunity to really interact with one another. We only have a few minutes, so I'll go ahead and get started. The first thing that I'd like for everyone to do is if we could go around and introduce ourselves with your name, organization, and location. To make this flow a little bit better, I'll call out the names as I see them. My name is Lamine Perkins. I'm the Community Engagement Director, the Assistant Community Engagement Director at NC Child. The next person I see on my list is Dr. Talo. Would you go ahead and introduce yourself, Dr. Talo?
Sure. I'm Dave Talo. I'm a pediatrician in Goldsboro and have been involved with the Child Advocacy Network in Goldsboro with Adam, and also work with the North Carolina Pediatric Society. And I've done a lot of legislative work over the years, and I'm a former president of the American Academy of Pediatrics. But I'm real interested in the community rollout of some sort of racial justice forum. I think that's the biggest need we have.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Talo. And I can attest to all of the great work that you've been doing out in the Goldsboro.
Guys, I think I have a bunch of you in the main room who didn't wind up in a breakout room. So this can be your breakout room if that's okay. I see Helen, Vicky, a couple other folks here. Are you guys still on the call?
So maybe I just wasn't looking at it.
Cool.
I didn't see anything pop up.
Wow. Like
Hello.
Star Trek or something.
Yes. Adam, do you want to go ahead and close us out with any final questions and announcements and things like that?
Oh, hey, Dr. Talo. I can see. Hey. Final announcements. So I would say, like Fawn said prior to the breakout sessions, I know we didn't get to it in our small group, but if you all want to give us feedback, we welcome that feedback on these calls. Do we want to keep these calls going on a weekly basis? You know, we've generally been having really good turnout. I think this week the numbers are down a little bit because the legislative session is happening right now. But, you know, do we want to keep going in sort of the format we've been doing? Do we want to keep going in a less frequent manner, keep these issue spotlights going? Or if you have any future topics you'd like to chime in about, feel free to send us an email at adam@ncchild.org is fine, or however you'd like, and we will take those into consideration and keep the drumbeat going.
I just want to say one thing, Adam, that we were talking about in our group, which I just think is a really interesting opportunity. And so I'm just going to say it out loud in case, and then maybe we can bring folks together around it later. But Malia and Frank Crawford were both in our group, and Vicky was in our group. And one of the things that we were talking about is in policy prioritization and the development of like, what are your policy priorities for your agency? Then that, you know, maybe there's an opportunity for us to learn together as a community about developing more specific filters and ways of looking at, are the policies we're choosing focusing on racial disparities? Are we making it worse? Are we making it better? And kind of developing some tools collectively so that we could learn together from each other on that. NC Child's been talking about it, but we haven't systematically started down that road yet. And I think there's an opportunity to do that with our partners that would help everybody. And I just thought it was a great conversation that we had. So thank you, Malia and Frank and Vicki, for that.
Absolutely. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Friday and a happy and safe weekend, and we will see you soon. Thanks.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.